It's not like, oh my gosh, let me, not eat chicken for a week and then, God, I need this miracle. In the middle of the movie where the protagonist kind of fails and they lose the fight and you're like, oh man, like you're crying and all this stuff. And God is sitting there like, she has no idea. I was on HBO Max, I was on Netflix, I was on Hulu, I was on Amazon Prime, I was on all the things, honey. I even went to Tubi. Just know that fasting works, guys. When you do it right, when you do it with a pure heart posture, it really works. Hey, it's Jazz. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then what up? And if you're not new, then welcome back. I am a believer in Jesus Christ and a former professional athlete turned writer and filmmaker. I like to discuss and create all things faith, film, and fitness and all that jazz. You know what I mean? So recently I have completed a 21-day Daniel's fast. The past 5 years I've been doing it at the top of every year, and this year I just kind of felt compelled to get on here and share what my experience has been like and some key takeaways, how I usually fast, what a fast even is, and some things that I've learned from it. So if you don't know what the Daniel's fast is, I'm sure there are tons of videos on YouTube about it already. I think it's becoming increasingly more popular for all the right reasons. The fast is usually performed by folks who identify with the Christian faith, like me. What it is resembling a fast that Daniel from the Bible actually completed himself. So really quickly, just a quick little background about Daniel. Daniel was a teenager who was taken into captivity. Him and 3 friends were taken into captivity in Babylon. Now, Babylon is a city that is traditionally known for wealth and partying and gluttony, sinful things, idol worship. Even while they were taken into captivity, they were offered all the alcohol, offered the partying, offered the idols to worship and etc. But Daniel, he said, I'm not going for that. The idea was feed them like Babylonians, train them like Babylonians, educate them like Babylonians, and train them up to be like Babylonian soldiers so that they can represent Babylon. But Daniel refused, and he asked if he and his friends could instead go on their own diet, which included only fruits, vegetables, and water. I believe things like whole grains, things that weren't necessarily considered choice foods like what the Babylonians were eating. And he promised that he and his friends would come out much stronger, faster, wiser, just like spiritually clear than everyone else who was, participating in all of the popular things. They said, that's not possible. Daniel said, watch me. And then after the 10 days, Daniel and his friends came back. Lo and behold, just like Daniel said, they were stronger, they were faster, they looked more youthful, basically like skin was glowing. They were like those boys. Yeah, they were those boys. The folks of Babylon were extremely surprised and they were super impressed. I won't explain the whole story, but basically, so the first time was like a 10-day fast. The second time they ended up doing it again for 21 days. And of course, they had the same results. And long story short, Daniel was able to win favor in the eyes of King Nebuchadnezzar, who was a king at the time, and all the people who were in the palace. And Daniel himself went on to rule in Babylon for about 65 years, I think. And he accomplished it all by going against the grain, being countercultural, being rebellious, and doing what he knew was right versus what the culture was saying was right. The point was that they denied their flesh of things that looked good, smelled good, felt good in the moment so that they could gain spiritual clarity, spiritual intimacy, and closeness to God. So Matthew 6:16-18 says, and this is Jesus's words, like from his mouth. He said, and when you fast, let me stop you right there. He didn't say if you fast. He didn't say
if you want to fast, like if you feel like it.
He said when, which means it's a command. If you're going to fall in line, if you're going to do this spiritual walk with me, if you're going to go on this journey with me as a believer, you need to fast because it's super essential to your spiritual journey, your spiritual relationship, all the things. When you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. Another thing, real quick. A lot of people, when they fast, they like to go around telling everybody, oh, sorry, you're ordering steak? I can't do that, brother. Yeah, I'm fasting. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ!
You don't have to do that. Just Go on about your business. If someone, now this is not to say that it should be a secret. Like if someone is asking you, hey, what's going on? Like, why aren't you eating this? Or are you not drinking tonight? You know, it's fine to tell people, oh yeah, I'm actually fasting. You can explain. It's a great way to evangelize and to fellowship with other folks. But what I'm saying is like, don't be on Instagram like, hey everyone, I'm fasting. I'm holier than thou. I'm better than you, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Like, relax. He said, so when you fast, anoint your head, wash your face, so that your fasting may not be seen by others, but only your Father who is in secret. And your Father who is in secret will publicly reward you. There's a lot of things you can fast from or take breaks from, but essentially the main thing is food. It doesn't mean that you can't eat anything ever for the rest of your life. But there are different ways to go about fasting. There's water fasts where people only drink water for a certain amount of time. There's juice fasts, same concept. There's like a daylight fast, you know, type of thing where you fast from certain hours in a day. So it's similar to intermittent fasting. And then there's the Daniel's fast, which is what I did. And that is that you're still allowed to eat and stuff, but you're only eating certain foods. So basically modeled after Daniel and his friends, the Christian church eventually went on to adopt this as the Daniel's fast. And the Daniel's fast, and any type of fast really, a great strategy that is used to gain spiritual clarity, spiritual intimacy, and general like closeness with God, to be sensitive to the Spirit. Just kind of like remove yourself from the chaos of the world, especially now with social media and technology and work and bills and all the things. It's really good to just kind of isolate yourself for a certain period of time and just kind of like hear from God, you know? Now, this doesn't mean that food is bad, right? That you shouldn't eat food, or that TV is bad, that whatever is bad. But what it does mean is that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And that's actually a Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 6 verses 12. Just because you have the ability to do something doesn't mean that you should always do it when you feel like it. If that's the case, I would probably weigh 600 pounds because I'm hungry all the time. But that doesn't mean that I should always eat when I'm hungry. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can technically fast at any point of the year. Personally, for me, I found it super helpful to start my year off that way. It just helps me to start the year off strong, kind of block out the chaos of the whole new year, new me, and all the like goals and the hustle culture of like,
Let me just, go 1000% as soon as the clock strikes January 1st.
Sometimes we can get all caught in the buzz of all of that. So for me, it helps me to kind of isolate in the beginning of the year, especially because a lot of times what I fast for is my vision for the year. Like, God, what do you have in store for me? What is your vision for me for the year? So what better time to do that than at the top of the year? This year, I decided to do it slightly different. So obviously I still prayed for vision and what God wants for me for the year, but I also had very specific areas of focus and things that I focused on this year. I'm not going to share what those things are because they are very personal, but just know that I had 3 very specific prayer points, and those things kind of helped me hone in onto like what exactly I wanted to focus on. And I think something like that might be a good tip for folks who are just starting as well. For me, my fast looked like no meat, no sweets, no caffeine, no alcohol, no social media, no secular music, and no TV. Now, TV was a hard one because I don't usually fast like completely from TV. A lot of times I'll just fast from things that maybe I'm like, this might have some stuff in it that I probably shouldn't be watching during my fast. But this time around, I felt very specifically moved to not watch TV at all. Anything that wasn't faith-based specifically, I did not watch. With this, it's super important to know 2 things. 1, fasting without prayer is just a diet. Don't think that giving up, that fried chicken is going to help you get over into the fast pass lane in heaven. It's not. That ain't how it works. You need to accompany one with the other. They're harmonious, if you will. And then 2, I think it's important to know that this process is more than just removing things. You can remove food, you can remove TV and social media, or whatever the case. But you should also be adding things in its place. If you take away a distraction, an addiction, a habit, a mindset, or a thought pattern, etc., it's not enough to just remove it, because then you'll just be leaving the door open for potential backsliding or something even worse to come and take its place. Let's just say you're fasting from TV, right? Fill those times that you would be watching TV with other things like praise and worship music, motivational podcasts, a faith-based sermon, something like that. Something else I do is come up with a word for the year. And again, that's something that's God-led. It's not something that I just wake up one day and say that I want, right? So usually I would kind of get an idea or a feel of what the word is that God has for me towards the end of the previous year. So usually in like November, December, something like that. And I would just pray about it, and I wouldn't necessarily confirm that that's my word for the year until after the fast, because I do want to make sure that it's, again, God-led, God-centered, not just something that I just came up with and I'm hoping for, I don't want to just be like,
prosperity is millionaire.
Birkin bag. Michael B. Jordan's wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are words, but are they God's words? So here are some things I learned from my fast this year. 1, my word of the year. My word of the year is close. So for me, this means, unfortunately, I feel like I haven't gotten a whole bunch of detail as to like what the year will look like for me. But I got the word to just be very close, be very diligent, vigilant. I was trying to say both. Okay. Be very diligent and be very vigilant. As someone who is a film director myself, I like to think of God as like the director of the movie of my life. So just trying to be confident that he knows what he's doing and I don't have to control and try to manipulate and direct myself. He knows what he's doing. He's already seen the full movie from beginning to end, and just because it's my first time seeing it doesn't mean that he doesn't know what's going to happen at the end. So I imagine him sitting next to me and we're watching a movie, and like in the middle of the movie where the protagonist kind of fails and they lose the fight and you're like, oh man, like you're crying and all this stuff, and God is sitting there like, she has no idea. Like, she has no idea how this movie's going to end. And that's kind of how I see God for me. Also, some other benefits I noticed my focus was a lot sharper. I felt like I was hearing God more clearly. I didn't have the noise of social media and of people and of TV and of music to kind of like get in the way of that. Another big thing I took from it was, like I said earlier, I felt like God was telling me specifically this year that I needed to fast from watching TV. And I was like, dang. Not even like the sitcoms, like the 90s sitcoms.
Okay, but there's a big difference, all right? A good job is hard to come by, but they got Dark and Lovely on damn near every corner you have. Okay? Now lube it down, BDB. Ain't no excuse. Lube it down.
And I was like, man, like that's not even, it's not raunchy. It's not anything crazy. They don't be cussing, like, I'm like, I can't watch, and I really felt like I was like, no. Nothing, no TV. It wasn't until like when the fast is almost over that I really understood why. So during my fast from TV, there were times where I wanted to watch TV and I was looking for faith-based content specifically, and I was scouring these apps, honey. I was on HBO Max, I was on Netflix, I was on Hulu, I was on Amazon Prime, I was on all the things, honey. I even went to Tubi. And there were times where I was just like, they just don't exist. I can't find faith-based content, or at least content that I like to watch. I couldn't find stuff that was like not corny, anything that didn't have minorities in the cast, black folks specifically. And then it clicked and God was like, yeah, that's why I wanted you to fast, so you can see exactly what the market was missing. You're praying to me about what you want to write next and what movie you want to make next, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm trying to tell you the gap that I want you to fill. And I said, oh my gosh. Oh. All right. For sure. I think it's important not to think of it as like some kind of get rich quick scheme or some get miracle quick scheme, We shouldn't be thinking about our relationship with God as transactional. It's an experience. It's so much more than that. It's not like, oh my gosh, let me, not eat chicken for a week and then God, I need this miracle. It changes you internally. It's not just about what God can give you. I have some really, really exciting news to share. And it was one of the things that I prayed about, during my fast. And so anyway, it's just really cool to see, like, it's really happening in real time. I really prayed about this. I fasted about this, and it's actually like I'm seeing it happen right now. Just know that fasting works, guys. When you do it right, when you do it with a pure heart posture, it really works. So that's pretty much all I have for today. If you're new to fasting, if you're new to the Christian faith, I hope you've at least received a little bit of insight into just what fasting is, or faith, Christianity, the Bible, anything. If you're already familiar with all of this stuff, I also hope that it just helped maybe to encourage you to go on a little fast yourself, and just know that you're not in it alone. Maybe you can start with something like a 3-day fast, a 2-day fast, a 1-day fast even. eating, or if fasting from food may be too hard to start out with, maybe something like fasting from social media, from TV, smoking, drinking, whatever your vice is. Doesn't matter the thing you fast from necessarily, as long as you have a pure heart posture. Anyway, I hope this helped. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!